7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Welcome everyone to this. This is the first one that I'm doing. I'm doing a bit of a sort of podcast video series where I talk about different themes. The main theme and the main focus is all around enablement, but instead of like most podcasts focusing on sort of traditional enablement, I'm looking at teams, lots of them actually within the post-sale and also in the pre-sale, that we often don't work with or sometimes struggle to work with. I'm joined today by someone, I've chosen someone from the company I currently work for, which is Ring Central, and he's going to come in and we kind of work together, but not really. He went through my onboarding and I would love to work with him more. And that's Giuliano Giannanini. Have I said that correct, Giuliano? Because I know I was
Yes,
struggling with it
yes.
before. Yeah.
No, very well said, actually. Thank you.
Uh,
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
so Giuliano, just talk to me about yourself. What do you do? What team are you involved with? And a little bit about your role.
Sure. So I work in training, I guess, according to Workday. My position is supposed to be um, tech training instructor, something along those lines, which doesn't mean much, but in plain English, basically customer tech training. That's what I do. So basically, customers come to our organization, they buy whatever solutions they need. Then it's my role to come in and say, okay, you did a great investment. Let me help you understand, figure out how to use that in order to, go about your daily scenarios and, find solutions and add value, of course, to all of your tech package, so to speak.
And you're going to be a bit modest here, but I've sat in the social area of our office and I've watched you and various people. You've switched to French, you've switched to Italian, you've switched to Romanian for a few of my team as well. How many languages do you actually speak?
Oh God, I get this a lot. I'm the language guy, which is a bit of a stigma at some point, but I'm supposed to speak 7 languages. So that would be, of course, English, otherwise I wouldn't be here. Italian, which is my native language, as you might have already realized from this very typical, Oxford accent of mine. Then French, Spanish, Portuguese, Mandarin Chinese, ever said that? And Romanian, which I'm still trying to sort of hone my chops at. My partner, my girlfriend, she's from there, been together for 6 years. So I had to learn Romanian as well, which I love, but it's quite tough as a language. So that's a challenge. So, but getting there, getting there.
I mean, that is impressive. I know that I have a sort of daughter who's a polyglot, and that is really really impressive to speak so many languages. And I've seen you switch between multiple ones, which is even more impressive. So there was a thing recently, a huge piece where everyone was amazed in the UK by a football manager called Will Still, and he was
Uh-huh.
he's a Belgian-born sort of English football manager, I think, and he spent a lot of time in all France, Belgium, and England. And he switches between French in a French accent and English in an English accent, and everyone was wowed. And I always think to myself, they should just spend maybe like 5 minutes in our cafeteria area. They would be equally
Yeah,
wowed by the incredible linguistical skills of you guys. So fun topic to start us with, and then we'll get on to some of the serious stuff. If you could be
sure.
any superhero, who and why?
Well, that's a great question. I could somehow give it away by showing you this. Don't know if you can see it on camera. It's basically a little Lego Batman. So I would definitely say Batman for sure. And that's because as opposed to, any other superheroes having like superpowers coming from whatever kind of, situations and such, he's just a human being, right? Although particularly well off, particularly intelligent, but that's what he uses, right? So he leverages on his intelligence, right, to be a hero or superhero or the sort of anti-hero within the superhero realm, if that makes sense. In fact, again, I do believe that he's also an anti-hero somehow. We do get to see his flaws, his ups, but his downs as well. It's like as well, like he doubts himself. um, he never really know what's right, or he might know, of course, and that's what somehow makes him struggle in a way, coming to terms or not coming to terms with his weaknesses. So yeah, but Batman surely is one of those. As a kid, for instance, I used to love the Batman animated series. I don't know if you ever watched it or heard of it. It was first aired, I think, in 1992. God, I'm giving my age away here. But anyway, I think he made it to Italy a few years later because I used to watch it as, when I was like between 3 and 5 years of age. Had a wonderful action figures album as well about that. But great drawings, great, music. I would recommend that for sure. Batman, the animated series. That's the name of it.
Cool. And people watching might be wondering, why are we asking about superheroes? Well, the whole kind of theme is that in a lot of organizations, you have hidden heroes. Often sales, like myself, I'm from a sales background. We might get a lot of plaudits, and even enablement, who are very close to sales, might get a lot of plaudits. But there's so many parts of an org, especially the parts I'll be talking to in these sessions, that are hidden heroes. So that's sort of why that question comes about. When it comes to sales enablement and training teams, a lot of times people will say to me, "Oh, enablement and training, same thing." And there are, in a Venn diagram, there's definitely an overlap. But where do you see the overlaps between perhaps where sales enablement could get involved with, say, a training team like yourself and a customer training team?
That's a great question. Well, I believe to start off with, first and foremost, we both unlock potential, if that makes sense. Like we are given, some professionals coming into training, be it sales enablement or tech enablement. And our job really is to unlock their potential in different ways. So we're both enablers at the end of the day. A way for us to, for instance, collaborate and work together moving forward could be, I don't come from training necessarily. I mean, I've been a trainer before, product trainer back in the days. I've been to Japan as a product trainer, whatever. That's for another conversation. But most of my professional career developed in sales. I'm a former AE, in fact. Um, so I do believe that interdisciplinary approach is key to success. Because as a sales professional, what I used to also encourage my reps to do and learn was the tech. Okay, what are we selling? Brilliant. I don't know. A watch. Okay, so the great stuff. Well, the important thing would be to learn not necessarily the ins and outs. You don't need to become an engineer, but definitely know what the product can do, what the limitations are, what solutions are we offering, what problems are we solving, right? So I do believe that these two roles, sales and tech enablement combined together, can add great value to offer, again, a wider and greater understanding to sales reps regarding the product that we sell, again, different scenarios, problematics out there, pain points and such. And yeah, and then create a power team really of sales reps moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, one of the themes or hot topics of 2023 and beyond is that everyone's a salesperson. You have to almost sell your role, whether that be internally, you have to
Sell
be part of.
yourself.
Exactly that. Yeah. And you mentioned that we've both been in similar backgrounds, both former sales, both gone into different areas of training, but still do a lot of training every day almost.
Yeah.
What do you think makes a good trainer?
Oh, that's a great question. How much time have I got to answer this?
A few
5 minutes.
so possible
Okay.
task. Yeah.
Right. So I'm gonna split my answer into two different parts. So number one, normally the academic answer would probably entail, listing a lot of adjectives ranging from adaptability and flexibility to obviously knowledge, public speaking, and such. But the reality is that number one skill one needs to have, I don't know if it's a skill or more pertaining to the personality realm, really, I believe is surely is curiosity. Because curiosity, I guess, Well, I believe it unchains a series of meaningful scenarios, right? For instance, it leads to product research in my position, okay, product research, testing. It leads to say, okay, I've been upskilled this way. That's what I've been told the product would do, but is it still doing what I had been told it would do, or have things changed in the interim? And then I tell customers the same thing, actually. I tell them, particularly administrators, when we are, talking about configuration related items, I tell them, guys, this is how it's supposed to be. This is supposed to be normal behavior of this solution, but go ahead and test it yourselves. See how, it makes more sense for you to be utilized. So I believe that's very important. Curiosity. Also, it allows you to somehow understand your audience a little bit better, do a bit of research, and that's again my sales side. Every time when I prepare a class, I always research the organization on LinkedIn, on their webpage. I sort of research the point of contacts, the key stakeholders within that organization, what their pain points could be. How does our solution come into place in order to solve their problems? So I believe all of these things stem from curiosity, and therefore allow you as a trainer to somehow be in their shoes for 1 hour, a couple of hours, and build rapport in such a short amount of time. That would be the first yet lengthy part of my answer. The second one is follow up. So I always share my email address every single time. Now, this is something that could backfire. As a matter of fact, some coworkers in the past told me, Giuliano, be careful because you don't want to be pestered by, a whole lot of questions. We've got support for that. I know, but imagine, you go and buy a car, a luxury car, okay? The first thing you expect is to have immediate support, right? Or someone sort of, taking care of any doubts you might have. So I believe this is great. And one of the greatest and biggest satisfaction I've ever had in my role actually came from a post-training rapport that I built with a customer. This person knew that I'm a huge Fiorentina football fan, which has not been doing great in the last few years. But anyway, that's on me for having chosen that team. But I'm from Florence, so couldn't avoid it. And he said, one of them said, I'm really impressed. I've never had that, such a rapid and helpful customer service after reaching out via email with lists of questions, which I dealt with immediately right away. And the other one said he had a few questions concerning call queues, call flow and such. I gave him a few scenarios to consider. And he goes, wow, this is a perfect solution. Yeah, the Battistute of Ring Central, the historical, let's say, Fiorentina striker. So I believe really curiosity, research, and support follow-up are all key to being what I believe is a good trainer, what I hope and aim to be, of course, on a daily basis. Sorry for the long-winded answer, but I really wanted to somehow, sparkle some reflections, food for thought, that kind of thing. What do you think? What do you think makes a great enabler, so to speak?
I think when we're in a training session, definitely engagement. So if you don't engage with your audience and you're just almost in lecture mode, you could be the most energetic, incredible trainer, but it's not going to be engaging and therefore memorable for the people involved. That's sort of the first thing. I think whenever we're building an enablement session to try and implement, having that interaction with, even when I was in Vegas recently, I had about 300 to 400 people in a room. So
Yeah.
it's very easy to lean and say, okay, I'm not going to engage because it could be overwhelming and go wrong quite easily. Just thinking about and making sure you structure that so you can still engage, whether that's like in a poll or through an app or even by raising of hands, go a little bit old school, those sort of things as well. You mentioned feedback. One of the best bits of advice I've ever had is someone actually is just moving into it. He's building his own enablement team. But it's like a world-class training and development manager, my former boss actually at Intrado,
Okay.
Neil. We were doing a lot of feedbacks and it's something that we're trying to do more in flight school at Ring Central. Actually, we were doing a lot of feedbacks after, like straight after the session, and nearly always you get really good feedback if you're pretty decent at training, and that's great. But one of the best bits of advice he said is like wait 3 to 6 months, especially with a salesperson, to get feedback, because they don't know if what they've learned is going to be useful for their role. So they don't know that what
That's
you
a great
taught them
point.
was good, and so that's almost, if I had to do a training bit of advice, that's always it's not mine. I kind of stole it off, off my former boss. But if you think about it, if you go 3 or 6 months in, especially if it's enterprise, maybe even 6 months, you say like, right, in hindsight, was what I taught you for days 1 to 10, or what my team taught you for 1 to 10, relevant? And you can break it down, and then you can actually start to improve, because you can go, okay, this is a really fun session to do, but it's not really relevant, until
That's a great
12
point.
months in. So
That's a great point.
that's one thing. I guess they're my one, engagement, and actually being able to assess properly, because it's great to assess straight after, and actually maybe in your world that's more powerful. I would say with a technical thing, have they understood it? Can they start using it straight away?
Somehow,
But with a salesperson, if I'm teaching them, say, a process on Salesforce, they might not use that for 3 to 6 months. So perhaps I don't do a live session. Perhaps I do an interactive video with a PDF that walks them through it all and stuff. Maybe
But
I
I
do
see
it
common
differently.
ground there. Like I see a lot of great points. For instance, we do have a system where we ask pretty much straight away for feedback. Like the training session ends, we drop a survey link in the chat and say, okay, go ahead and compile that. How did it do? This didn't tell about me as your trainer. How did it for you today? But I would find way more value in more of a long-term kind of feedback, as you mentioned, because the immediate feedback could be, unconscious bias are real. Imagine me as an Italian national living, yes, in an English-speaking country, but with my accent, training non-European, audiences that might not be that familiar with the European accent. Well, one of the first things they might think of when they, compile a survey straight after the training session could be related to, okay, was my trainer fun? I am really fun, honestly. Like I engage people, I call them by their names and such, and I make, analogies and whatever. But anyway, did they perceive me as fun? Did he have a nice accent? Blah, 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 blah. So that's not really the scope of feedback, right? It's more, I believe the goal is more saying, okay, did you learn what was relevant to you, to your organization? So I don't know, it could backfire even immediate, feedback. I would love probably more, both, you see, like a short term as well as a long term, as you're saying. So in food for thought, again, something to take away and probably discuss with my managers. Hopefully they are, watching the podcast as well and take some notes in that sense.
And you mentioned, I totally agree with all the things you've said, and you mentioned a few times that you're from Italy, and I find that fascinating, because it's an area that I've always tried to enable. I've had a team, Matteo. I call it a team. There was 2
Ciao,
people.
Matteo.
Matteo, my former manager of Italy, Triani, from I think he was from Turin, I believe, or Milan. He was from
Right.
he was from one of the triangle, and he was fantastic at explaining to me like the differences between sort of the UK, because every country I have to enable has huge cultural differences, huge business differences and sales differences. Some it's faster paced. Sometimes the first meeting's different. The questions are different. The way we go about relationship building with potentially there's rules on events and engagement around that. Talk to me a little bit about like Italy and selling in Italy. What's the sort of big differences you see from your experience?
Yeah, here we are going to open a can of worms potentially, but particularly for those coming into Europe, even as a whole, I guess a suggestion I would have, or something to be on the lookout for, surely are cultural differences, as in different approaches to anything in life, anything/everything in life, as in the way we perceive coffee, for instance, which could be, yes, a nice break during the day, but it's also for leading to social engagement in a way. Some deals are also closed or discussed over dinner in Italy, which, okay, pretty much everywhere these days because of globalization and all the rest. But, we are tend to be quite sociable in that sense, which to some other cultures can be perceived as oh God, this guy's touching my shoulder, please, back off kind of thing. So I believe culture normally, even within the Italian country, within Italy, has a great influence on everything, on business in particular. Because Italy had been reunited in 18, hope my Italian nationals are not going to pick on me for that. I get 1861, if I'm not wrong, between 61 and 66, something along those lines. I should, dust off my high school knowledge. But anyway, we are a very diverse country, as in someone from Florence, like myself, has a very different approach from someone from Milan, who we tend to say that they are more formal, that kind of thing. They're even more internationally oriented. That's the general belief, of course, as opposed to the ones from the South, who have a completely different approach to life, way more relaxed, way more, laid back and such. So this is something I used to even tell my former reps, my former SDRs, like, guys, we are working in Europe, okay? So we are aware by nature, that's how we are wired, that our continent is full of different cultures, different, again, approaches to life and such. So be very wary of that, okay? What works in Germany might not work in Spain, for instance, you see, things like that. I'm not really giving you an answer here, but I believe there is no answer in general terms. Just be wary that Italians might show up late, all of those stereotypes in a way. But it is true. We tend to have a very vertical hierarchy. So when it comes to closing deals, it might take longer as opposed to doing business with Americans, for instance, or the English-speaking world, where the individual is way more empowered in this sense, and deals can be closed rather quickly. So no matter what country are you trying to deal with from a sales or business perspective, I tend to recommend the Dutch social psychologist Gerd Hofstede, Hofsted. Comparing cultures in particular, he's got a website, or he had a website before he passed, sadly, and I discovered this during my master's here in London. It's a web page where there are sort of the common traits of all cultures, or most cultures of the world. And that tells you what to expect in a way. If you've never dealt with, I don't know, an Indian national or Chinese or an Italian national or French national, kind of tells you more or less the common traits of that culture, what to expect. Therefore, I do recommend reading more about, the influence of business in culture. There are loads of studies of that. It is something I also studied it at university here in London. So thank you, London, for opening my mind in that sense even further. And we were very wary of that because it could impact a whole lot of things, more than we think. So be aware of different cultural traits for sure.
I think that's one of the big themes of sales. If you're doing an international deal, you have to be aware, try to learn as best as possible. You're never going to learn as much as if you were living there or if you were from there. Potentially, you try and immerse yourself as much as possible. I remember when we had a huge client from Japan. I think you spent a bit of time, and before we went into the meeting, because they had flown over and I was doing the ROI modeling for them, we were given some training, video training, on how to present and take a business card. Very, very important thing. You can blow a meeting if
both
you
hands
disrespect. Yeah, both hands.
Right.
A certain amount of time to look at the card, respect it, read it. That's and then you can put it away. But if you took it like we do in the UK, a lot of, and I'm guilty of this, you take it, you look at it, and you put it in your card. Yeah. Thanks for that. That's a huge insult, and I was taught that. And again, it all comes down to training in a way, training and immersion and understanding, all things that we've talked about today.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I learned it the hard way. Back in 2015, I was in Japan for a training tour, so to speak, across the country. Back in the days, I was representing an Italian multinational within the luxury, whatever luxury means, realm. And yeah, it was. I remember I flew over from Zurich. I think I landed in Osaka, and it was 7 a.m. over there. I had to go straight to, on site to train my coworkers at the time. As I step into the boutique, of course, the boutique manager hands in her business card. I pick it with one hand. I sort of, look at it, but quickly apparently, and I just, put it in my jacket. And she was a bit like, well, okay, well, probably I should give him, another business card for him to look at it a bit longer. But anyway, I was then explained that the best way to go about that is to, yes, as you correctly said, pick it with both hands, look at it, you know, value it, and then put it back. Well, put it away and hand yours. And same way, both hands with a bit of a bow, Um, so yeah, sorry, I'm digression here, but
No,
it triggers
it's
some
kind
nice
of
memories.
really, I mean, that's the thing. It's useful because a lot of the time you might be in this scenario, especially for big global organizations, and these sort of trainings and actually, to your point earlier, doing your research is critical. Talking of research, before I joined Ring Central, I mean, one of the I've been in UCAS really for most of my career now, about 15 years nearly,
Oh,
and one of the
that's a
things
long time.
it's a while, yeah. You said you're showing your age. I'm giving a bit of mine away. But so the thing, I mean, I actually before the pandemic, we're sat on RCV at the moment, Ring Central Video. It didn't exist really in that regard, and the advancements have been unbelievable. But if we our product set is much more than just this. What's your favorite product feature from our entire product stack as a trainer?
Oh God, I'm not biased. I promise. Uh, because of my sales background, I've used quite a few uh, different solutions over the years, but I like a lot of products really. Like think of Call Switch, the one feature I didn't know I needed until I saw it, actually. Meaning we could be in a video call right now and I could have my mobile app on my phone and quickly switch the call over to my mobile app and carrying our conversation away because probably need to step away from my desk. I'm on a long conversation with a customer. It's taking ages, but it's my lunch break, which I also deserve. So let me switch that live call to my phone with no interruption to the call. I find that really cool. Or another one is the HUD as a display. I can somehow not monitor, I don't really love the term, but take a look at my coworkers' availability real time. If they happen to be in a call, I'm not going to transfer my calls over to them. You see, so these are two of my favorite, features within our UC solution. Then I also love Engage Digital, which is more contact center side. I love that product because it really enables organizations to say, okay, we receive a high volume of incoming contact messages, social media messages, that kind of thing, emails, SMS, WhatsApp. How to handle all of these? Well, we've got, a one-stop shop solution so that agents can quickly, handle those conversations directly from there and even be proactive, as in sending messages directly from Engage Digital, but it will translate on the customer's side as a normal email. You could message me from Engage Digital. I'm never going to find out that you messaged me from there. As far as I'm concerned, you just send me an email that displays your email address. You see, so in short, these are three of my favorite features slash product. The last one I said it's actually a product entirely, but I just love it. I love Ring Central, honestly, I do. For our
Yeah,
culture, for
you've sort of stolen one of my favorites is Call Switch. I love that because I can be I can be walking the dogs and someone rings me and then they want to get on a web call with me and they're on a phone call with me and I can do it in sort of well instantaneous really. I can
yeah, yeah,
switch
yeah, that's true.
into a video and that's exceptional from a incredible sort of calling piece there. I think one of the things that I love is just the development team here. I mean, I find them incredible. I mean, if we're talking about heroes, to me, they're the sort of they're the the true heroes. The
They
R and
are
D
indeed.
team. I remember I was doing flight school and the pandemic hit, and we've just got this pretty new product. And I sort of said, look, I'm going to have to train and enable all these people online. You sat through my online onboarding yourself.
Yes.
And I sort of said,
Great
look,
experience. And not because I'm here with you. I really loved it. I really loved it.
And I sort of said to them, well, myself and Sarah, we fed back saying we really need breakout rooms because we, it's I know it's not going to, it is a used feature heavily by people like trainers and enablers, not going to be at the top of the list, I guess, but they sort of about 2.5 weeks later, I'm getting messages saying, oh, we saw your request and we've built breakout rooms, and you're on the testing piece with it. And I tested it, and then suddenly a week later, it's almost coming out into production. And I was just
crazy.
I was blown away by that, because I've seen a lot of tech companies. I get to do some consultancy outside of RingCentral with tech companies. Still very rarely see that sort of level of quickness or speed, when it comes to development, innovation. That to me is why I've always loved it here. That's why I joined here.
That's true.
It's one of many. I've got hundreds of examples of that. That one to me made a massive difference, because it sort of
definitely.
they'd listened to their internal staff and built something that customers could use as well, because we're a customer, technically, enablers and trainers.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that was really, really good as well. So yeah, I mean, it could, like a few of these topics, you could spend an entire podcast talking about how wonderful the stack is.
Definitely.
If you could go, I mean, you're in training, I'm in training, but if you could go back, or even if you spoke to someone and you're speaking to someone, they could be any age, from any background, and they're thinking about going into training, and it's like, what would be your main piece of advice to someone going into training in general?
Well, I would say, just to circle back to what I mentioned earlier, be curious, doubt everything. Take that as a metaphor, okay, with a pinch of salt, of course. Like, do listen to your managers, but still doubt everything, okay? Bring your personality into what you're doing and have fun. Because when I train, I have fun. Again, I engage with my trainees. We crack jokes, right? We don't want to bore them to tears. We don't want to incur in a death by PowerPoint, which is why I'm a strong believer of live demos, actually, more than PowerPoint presentations. And yeah, so just that, unlock your potential, like unleash your personality professionally, but do that.
Thanks for this. This has been, really helpful. We're sort of at time now, but I just find, to summarize, firstly, thank you. You're
Thank you for
amazing at
having
what
me,
you
Ben.
do. You're very talented at what you do. I see that. I get to see that.
Well,
I would
you
wish
make
I
me
got to see
blush.
it every day, but I get to see it most days and hear about it most days. In general, though, I think the big theme here is that technical training teams, technical enablement teams, sales enablement teams, there's definitely huge overlap. There's potential to work together. I think we both want to work together, and this is not just RingCentral, but for all organizations. I think these two teams are really well in sync, and perhaps we don't do enough of it as a profession. But thank you so much, Giuliano, and
My pleasure, Ben. Thank you for
I'll
having
hopefully
me.
have you on again soon, and take care.
You too. Cheers. Bye-bye. Thanks for watching.
Bye-bye.